Item number 3, Mr. Norman Freeman at the October 18th meeting explained to the board that he was using a generator to power his travel camper trailer whenever he's at his lot, which is located at 888 CC Land Road in East Point. He further explained that his lot borders with the Coastline RV Park and his generator was disturbing some of the RV Park's customers. Mr. Freeman asked the board to consider authorizing power to his property, perhaps as a grandfathered exception since the county doesn't allow power to travel camper trailers. County staff asked the property appraiser's office to provide any records of permits for power at that address. There were none, so the board doesn't have the option to consider the grandfathered exception. However, I contacted Mr. Garrett Creamer of Coastline RV Park, who was unaware of the situation, but in a very gracious and cooperative manner, is willing to provide Mr. Freeman with power when he's using his travel camper trailer at 888 CC Land Road. Mr. Freeman is here today to discuss this matter further. Mr. Freeman?
Good morning.
Speak your name for the record.
Name is Norman Freeman. I'm here regarding the property at 888 CC Land Road in East Point, Florida. Mr. Garrett was gracious enough to provide us with temporary power, and it was very clearly understood, Mr. Kramer, that it is temporary power. I still contend that my property should be grandfathered. In 1973, the property there, the power pole, was in fact installed in accordance with the ordinances or laws at that particular time. It doesn't surprise me one bit that he finds no permitting there. A question for Mr. Moran here is, do you have permitting for the current mobile RV trailers that are being provided power in the county?
Well, if you're talking about some of the ones that you see throughout the county, there's a couple of issues. One, there was a time, and it could be back in the 70s, the board have to correct me, when it could have been Florida Power, Progress Energy, I'm not
sure. It was Florida Power at that time, yes.
They were connecting, authorizing power without the county's consent. In other words, people did not have to come to the county to get an inspection, to get the green sticker, to get it done.
That was 70.
Exactly, that's why, as he referred to the property having power then, that's why we don't have any record of that, because we did not do that back in the day. That practice has stopped. That no longer happens. You've got to come to the county for that green sticker to get power. That's number one. Number two, there are quite a few lots probably around that basically what he said, legally at some point they had power, may have been a trailer, a home of some type. That was gone and they replaced it with a camper. Now, with our hands, and this I'll defer to the attorney, are kind of tied until they come to the county where something happens and they need an inspection and they need to get power there. That's when we can do something about it. I'm not sure if we can do anything right now.
Okay.
And if I'm wrong, sir, you have to kind of chime in and guide me here. So,
our hands are not tied, but that's also not the issue. The issue is Mr. Freeman, so that's what we need to focus on.
okay. But that explains why you do have some campers around the county with power.
Okay. Okay, I do believe that we're dealing with your county ordinance 82-6 here. Is that what we're referring to? Is that the ordinance that's preventing us from obtaining power?
Not specifically, sir. It's actually the opposite way around. I'm not sure which ordinance you're referring to. I'd have to see it. We have specific rules as to who we give power to, not necessarily who we don't. You have to have a mobile home that's going to meet the minimum square footage, or a house. You can submit plans to build a house and use a camper trailer as a temporary power to get your house, but you have a year to move forward.
Yes,
at
I'm
that
familiar
point,
with that.
we take away that temporary power, or we give you permanent power if your house is complete.
Okay. Well, when I came to your office back in May of this year,
yes, sir.
This is the ordinance they gave to me and told me that it was the one that was preventing me from obtaining power on my property. Now, the property has, in fact, had actual power to the service pole since 1973. Now, I have multiple letters here from folks who was on the property, folks that know that there was power there at that time. You stated that they were not required to come to the county. They would provide power without county's approval. So I would contend that under your statement, we did, in fact, have power there within the guidelines of the ordinances of the county at that time. Now, I have letters here stating that there's been power there since 1973. It's never been separated. If you would like, Mr. Chairman, I'll present these letters to you.
If the power, hold on, I got a question here, Mr. Chairman.
sir.
If the power was never suspended or the meter taken out, why ain't there power there today?
No, the meter was taken out. As
Okay,
each tenant.
That's when you
Yeah.
interrupted service, sir. If that meter had been left there, and
Okay.
you had continuous power since 1973, we wouldn't be here today.
Okay,
When we broke that and had the meter taken out and you disrupted that power, then you've lost your grandfathering status, and then you got to comply with the new regulations, as I understand it. Attorney's opinion?
What I'm trying
I
to.
can't say it any better than that, Commissioner, that's exactly
That's
correct.
exactly what I'm
That,
trying to
that,
do.
that is the problem when you lost the power. If you'd have left the power on and paid the minimum, I think they charge you to have that meter there, you know, for several years, if the meter was still there and you still had a power connection, then we wouldn't be here today.
okay.
Exactly.
When
Now,
you broke the power connection and did away with that meter base, now you have to come back and comply
Okay.
with the current regulations. You can't go back and say, I had continuous power since 1973, because obviously you don't.
Okay, I understand your
You had the
point.
power broken.
Okay, well made.
And that's where you lost your grandfathering status.
Okay. Now, I have your ordinance in front of me here. Your ordinance says here under paragraph 5 that you're not allowed to live in these trailers more than 2 weeks, maximum, in the entire county. It says you're not allowed to live there. You're not enforcing this ordinance currently because there's folks all over the county living in their travel trailers. Now, I'm not stating that you need to go around and throw these fine folks out of their homes, but your ordinance does state that. You're not enforcing it. Now, here, you're enforcing this ordinance on me, but in accordance with your law, your ordinances, you're not doing so in this county. Now, let me ask each of you a question. Mr. Parrish, do you believe in equal rights under the law?
Absolutely.
Do you, Mrs. Sanders, believe in equal rights under the law?
Always.
Mr. Massey? Mr. Lockley?
I do.
Mr. Watson? Sir, you are not doing that here. You're applying a law to me that you currently refuse to enforce in this county. Where are we at with that?
Attorney?
Mr.
If
Sugar.
y'all give me instructions to go out and start enforcing the ordinance, I'll do so. But the fact is, whether it's kind of like pulled over for speeding, I may have 5 people passing me and going faster than me, but when I get pulled over and given a ticket, then I'm still responsible. And that's the issue that's going on here with Mr. Freeman. The ordinance, unless you change that ordinance, he has lost his grandfathering, and you cannot give him a power pole for his RV unit in the county. That's just the way your ordinances and regulations are set up unless you change them, and I don't recommend that you change them.
When was this ordinance put into place?
1982, sir.
It's the late 70s, early 80s, the best I can remember.
It was. I have it right here in your ordinances. It's 1982, sir.
That was long before my time.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Yes, sir, you may.
Yes, sir.
Now, you asked us that we believe in equal rights.
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay. I don't understand how you act that, and we've done the same thing for you up until you just lost your status.
Okay, well, I can ask, I thought I was able to ask any question I'd
you
like
can
here,
ask- You
sir.
can ask it, but we've done the same thing for you.
Yes, sir.
I mean, it
You
just-
you have in fact given me a fair hearing, yes, sir.
We've done the same thing. We didn't mess with you until, it wasn't on our fault, this happened.
Yes, sir.
And we did not come in there and said nothing to you before that.
Yes, sir.
So I think we were being equal to you as we done everybody.
Okay, in that light, yes, sir, I agree with you, but I do not agree with you in the other light.
I understand.
But
Okay.
that's a matter of opinion, and that's okay. I accept that.
So the question is the board want to change the policy?
I guess it is. That's where we're at, because staff is, I'll be honest, our hands are
We-
tied, just, maybe I
We
used the wrong
just had
term
all
earlier.
this a few months ago with Lanark. And we had,
Everybody else.
and that's where I'm coming from on this, and we had to stay, you know, because we had this ordinance, and we had to comply, you know, make sure that everybody was
Yeah.
in compliance.
I know I've told several people over here in Appalachia that you couldn't get power to a camper.
Right.
Yes.
And-
Same way, and I mean, if
And
we're
if-
gonna
and
do
if
it,
we
we
try-
got to do it for all.
Exactly right. That's what my comment was fixing to be. If we allow him to have power, which his power's been discontinued, so he lost his grandfathering status, then we got to treat everybody the same. And the only way you can do that is to redo the ordinance, because everybody else should be allowed to have the same rights that we're now looking at giving him.
Yes.
So when we're talking about equal rights, you understand the implications of what the county's trying to do, whether you know.
I do.
Make the allegations that we're not enforcing our current ordinance. But if we change that ordinance, then everybody else is gonna be treated fairly and equal, just like we're going, if we change the policy, that you're being treated.
Okay.
So, and we've just went through this less than a year ago with Lanark Village, with some people in Carabel that was on the unincorporated part of Carabel. The city of Carabel's been fighting the same issue, and if we change this ordinance, then everybody's gotta be treated fairly and equitably, just as you stated.
Yes, sir.
So it puts this board in a bind when we're talking about making an exception for one person. We can't do that. We gotta make exceptions for everybody. So the question
Okay.
comes to the board is, do we wanna change the policy? We have to move forward. We cannot go back. We can only move forward. So
Yep.
does the board want to change the policy and go back through what we went through about 9 months ago?
Or-
That's the question for the board here.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just remind the board, y'all had directed me probably a year and a half ago or more to conduct a public hearing on the RV ordinance issue. And at that time, the board was not looking to make the policy more liberal. You, in fact, were going to make it more restrictive. And that's the approach that the board has been taking over time, is to make sure that you encourage people to develop their real estate to enhance the tax base so that you can more equitably distribute the tax burden amongst all the property owners within the county. Because the property appraiser, whenever they appraise a lot with an RV, they appraise it as if it is vacant land, not improved land. So your policy, as I said, is to, more equitably distribute the taxes. More equitably distribute the taxes amongst all the property owners within the county. So that's why you're trying to make it more restrictive, not more liberal.
Now, the question becomes, for Mike, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
The question becomes is, as the gentleman is speaking about camper trailers and power, how many of those go back and still have the grandfathering status?
I'm not aware that there's a list that identifies those properties.
But as he stated, there are camper trailers that have power, but we don't know who was pre-existing before the policy was actually put into place,
That is also.
whenever the date of the ordinance was put
That's
in
true,
place.
Commissioner.
I don't know either, but
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
something else that has to be looked at, is how long they've been continuous power on those particular lots, that they don't have to come back to the board for permitting. And they may have moved the camper off and moved the camper in without any interruption of service.
Correct. And under the rules regulating the provision of electric services, once that power is vested, so to speak, on a property, then you have very limited options in enforcing the removal of that electric service, because it is regulated not by the county, but by the Public Service Commission. Where your regulatory enforcement comes into play is the initial provision of service or denial of service. And that is how the county has used the tool of electric meter, or the service of electric power, as a tool to restrict development and make sure that it is done in a fashion that complies with your development code and is not contrary to the code. And when Mr. Freeman lost his grandfathering, now whenever he wants to come to the board and obtain his electric service, he now has to comply with the current rules, not the rules as they existed 45 years ago, but the rules as they exist in 2016. And right now, your rules do not allow him to have power service for the RV. So unless you're willing to change your ordinance, and you can't do that here today anyway, you have to schedule a public hearing. So unless the board is willing to change your ordinances, then you have to deny Mr. Freeman's request, because he has lost the grandfathering of that electric service.
What you were getting an upgrade?
Sir?
What you were getting an upgrade?
No, sir. The power is to the pole, and it still has the original meter services. It's not an upgrade unless, for some reason, I had been granted power to the property and it was required. I have not upgraded at this point. I'm not seeking an upgrade. Is that your question, Mr. Commissioner?
Yeah.
There was no, he's trying to figure out why we're here, basically.
Oh.
There was no service at the pole, and now he wants service
okay.
added to that pole. But as he said, at some point, do you remember when it was pulled? Do you have any clue when it was stopped?
Actually, I have a letter here, actually 1992, was, I had actually an RV trailer there with power in 1992. And then when they left, of course, the meter's pulled like it always is, and there's a seal placed on the box. Did I answer your question?
Yes,
sir?
that's what it is, Commissioner. The service stopped somewhere after 92, and so there's been no service since then.
Somewhere around 2003, I think, was the last service that was there. Geez, that's a guess, guys.
You plan on building a home there?
No, sir, I had not planned on that. I simply used the property to come home here to visit with family and friends and maybe vacation a little is what I use the property for. No intention of living in an RV. I bring it with me, and when I leave, I take it with me. Yes, sir.
Why we got in, I mean, what Florida, Duke told him he had to come to us?
Well, that's how we do it now, Commissioner. If you have no service or you need an upgrade and where they have to stop your service, you gotta come to us to get an inspection. Make sure you meet all the rules of all our ordinances, then we can issue, okay to Duke Energy to get it done.
And that's in that zone where FEMA had us to, that 1,500-foot zone where FEMA come, what was it? 2 or 3 months ago, 5 months ago, FEMA put that restriction on us through.
Well, we couldn't even get the one, mobile home moved to the other one across the way. That in
We couldn't
itself
move that
took like
girl's
3
mobile
meetings to
home
work
from
out.
one side to the
because
other
of
side
FEMA.
because
Yes, sir.
FEMA wouldn't let us move
It's
it.
in that same zone, yes, sir.
Well, that's
That same
interesting.
zone.
I called and talked to FEMA personally, and they indicated that they didn't do that.
Didn't do what?
They didn't restrict what you do within that 1,500 feet. They stated to me that it was up to
We
the
got a
lowest
letter on
controlling
that now.
authority.
We got-
Within
Yeah.
1,500
Yeah.
foot,
Oh,
you
we
do.
got a letter because a girl had a trailer right there and wanted to move it down the road, and they wouldn't let the lady move her trailer from one spot to the other spot because FEMA wouldn't hook them back, wouldn't let us hook her up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
she was right there in that area.
I'm not disputing what
No,
you
I would
have.
say we had
Yeah.
a letter from FEMA, because we had a long meeting on that, a workshop.
Okay.
Well, we have never deviated from that. We just had a, recent looking at the rules and trying to, tighten them up. I don't see nothing else we can do other
Okay.
than what we're doing. And it's like we all said, if we do one, we're gonna have to do all, and then that will be a bad situation. So I say, let's just leave it like it is, unless there's somebody that has different views on it than me. So, anyway.
Well, I certainly have nothing else to add,
We don't wanna do
folks.
it, do we have to do it by motion? Or just tell them? I wouldn't say, I'm just.
Your staff has already applied the ordinance and
Mm-hmm.
given him that decision. He's essentially coming to you, asking you to make a different decision. So I don't think you need to take any action
That's
here
what
about
I'm
that.
saying.
Okay. Well-
Mr. Chairman, if I might, in all due fairness, the girls that work next door that you're dealing with has caught a lot of trouble over this issue. Not just with him, but with people across the county.
Everywhere.
I mean, these people are making sort of remarks to the county staff and everything else over this issue, not your issue, but this issue
And to the
in general.
commissioners too, so we.
And for
You're
us to
certainly not-
deviate,
You're certainly not making inference that I abused his staff.
Oh,
are you?
no,
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 not at
no,
all,
no,
Mr.
not,
President.
I said
No,
the
sir.
issue, not your issue, but the issue. The
Yes, sir.
people across the
Oh, not
county
at all.
Yes, sir.
feel the same way you do. A lot of people do. But
Yes,
they
sir.
don't understand the position that the board is in. So our county staff does take some verbal abuse from time to time, has been reported to me.
Yeah.
On this issue, not your issue, but this issue of regulating power. And for us to turn around and deviate away from that after these girls are continually
I understand.
badgered about this, not your
Yeah.
issue, but the issue. And they have to continually tell people the same thing they told you. We can't give you power based on the county ordinance. Well, we just want power for same type of situation that you're in.
Okay,
But
I
the
understand.
overall issue,
It gets bad, Commissioner. I'm gonna tell you.
It gets bad, is what's
Well,
been reported to
But,
me.
Mr.
Guys.
Freeman, I want to be very clear, you've not been disrespectful in any way.
No, 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 no. I'm
No, not
not
you.
saying that.
Not at all.
Yeah,
Just the
okay.
We just
issue in
had one here a
general.
while
Understand.
back on 98, it got out of hand.
In Carabel, Lanark, we keep referring
Guys,
to, their
although-
county staff has really caught trouble about this issue, but,
they have.
it's something the board has voted to, enact this ordinance to try to curtail some of this. And as I said, we can't go back.
Okay.
We can only go forward, in trying to better implement and better enforce the ordinance. But you can't go back, you can only go to try to move forward, and I think that's what the board is trying to do. But in making an exception or changing the policy, we're going back. We're not moving forward. So, I mean, I agree with Commissioner Sanders. I
Okay.
mean, it's nothing personal. I'd like to help you, but I can't help you without helping everybody.
Mr. Freeman,
That has requested power that doesn't meet the
Yeah,
the terms of the
although,
ordinance.
guys, although I'd like to have power to my property, certainly, I certainly would like to thank Mr. Braun here. He's been patient, he's been understanding, he's been helpful in every way he could.
I'd love to give it to you, I mean,
yeah,
but
I s- and-
we just got our hands tied.
I certainly,
Mr. Garrett says that he could hook you up and put like a little thing to tell how much power you used, and that's all you would,
Well, he is in fact, sir, doing that.
Yes, sir.
I certainly can't deny that.
no,
And,
he's a good guy, he'll,
Yes.
yeah, although I would like to have the power, I certainly appreciate your time. You've taken up a lot of your time with this, and I certainly appreciate your considerations. I certainly meant no offense by asking each of you if you
no, you're
believe
fine.
in equal rights under the law, because I have a viewpoint and you have a viewpoint. And I would like to thank you. Have a nice
Thank
day.
you.
Thank you,
I
Mr.
hated
Freeman.
to deny you, especially in the, you served the country 22 years, but thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner, do you want to take a break, or we
Yeah,
continue
we'll
until
take a-
Lisa
yeah,
gets, until Lisa gets, she should be here hopefully at 10 o'clock.
We're gonna take a 5-minute recess.